Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Matt Carey. Today's topic, the marketing interface with technology, customer experience, AI, and IT. Got a lot of acronyms in today's title. Now, Matt is an IT and retail pro, having worked as the Chief Technology Officer of eBay and Wal-Mart prior to becoming CIO of Home Depot, where he is now the EVP of Customer Experience. He's here today to talk about best practices for marketers when they are working on and interfacing with their tech and customer experience teammates. Full disclosure, Matt and I have known each other since we worked together at eBay. Welcome, Matt.
Mike, thanks a lot for the invite. Super excited about our conversation today.
It's great to see you as well. So let's start. Give us an overview of what's going on in the marketplace of technology and customer experience. I mean, you've been in this space for a long time. Tell us about what's going on.
Well, Mike, the entire customer experience that most people rely on are more and more being powered by technology, right? Yeah. The only interface they have with a brand sometimes is their technology app or their self-checkout, or some sort of technology plays a role in their delivery of service. And so, here at Home Depot, we've been really focused on taking the customer's point of view. In other words, working customer back. And really getting under the hood of the things, the good, bad, and the ugly that we expose our customers to. And in a lot of cases, we're providing friction that we had no idea that they're experiencing. And that's really kind of the job that we've been under here for the last few years, is where can we kind of diagnose and break down the customer experience in ways that you can understand, okay, where are we actually putting things in place which either expose our internal org chart to the customer, or where they've had to go through some hoop to get to the next stage in the process of their satisfying their transaction. So that's kind of the nutshell of the job, right?
I think that's a really good overview, which is, look, technology is fueling a lot of the customer interface, which is why you would be putting IT and customer experience together. You have all this data and now AI coming in play, and there's more tools than ever to plug in. How do you manage all of this when you are looking at both the demand for data in the company, the demand for all this technology to be put in play, and the customer experience, which doesn't always want all of that immediately?
Yeah.
Especially the application later where you're jamming AI in on people and they're like, this isn't working for me. So talk to me about how that works.
Well, listen, again, practically speaking, if you're trying to create a project where you're going to have some breakthrough by applying AI to it, I think most people aren't having a lot of great luck with that. Yeah, you got to be more practical, and I think you got to be measured early on, and where and how you choose what you're going to go after. And a lot of people miss a few steps. And
can you give us an example of this while you're unwinding this? Because I think this is a fascinating topic.
I'll give you a great example of where we're trying to. We have an aspiration for AI to be implemented, but there's 2 or 3 steps that we've got to go through to get to that point. And, you know, I'll use the example of an airline where, if you can remember Delta back in the day, where you had to go to the counter to check in, or if you wanted any change in your flight, they had those crazy codes they keyed in, yada yada. They probably still do. And
sometimes they were even nice to you, but not always.
Yeah, not always. Most of the time they were super stressed. And at some point they decided they had to pivot because, you know, they had to embrace the app. They figured out it's a way to save, have efficiencies of scale. And they also figured out they needed to implement kiosks. And so they put a whole bunch of technology in front of the customer. And for a while, you couldn't change your flight, right, on those applications. So you actually had to call someone, right?
Sadly, I remember this. Yes, and sometimes they were nice to you.
If you got in touch with a human in a reasonable amount of time, and I'm not trying to throw rocks at Delta, because I know they've done a great job of doing a bunch of things to improve the experience. But if you think about our world, how that works is everybody says, "Oh, you can apply AI to the call center," and there's a lot of efficiencies that come, and there's a lot of insights that you can get, et cetera, et cetera. Well, to do that, you kind of got to say, okay, all our customer data is pretty pure. It's aligned. We know who's calling in. We can actually anticipate, based on looking at our order database, around what they might be calling about before they even talk to a human. Maybe the last thing they really want to do is call a Fortune 5 company in the first place. So we kind of want to work backwards from that, right? And get a lot of data about what's going on, so that we can maybe anticipate that on the front end. But we don't necessarily want them to go talk to a robot, right?
Right.
So, in our world, the complexity of their problems to us is really maybe an incomplete customer experience, right? Where we could probably use some attention on eliminating that friction so they don't have to call us to begin with. If we miss a delivery, or we miss if something gets damaged, or you are dealing with one of our service providers in a big project around a bath remodel or something, a lot of things that got to kind of line up on the road to make that thing go smooth as possible. So the first thing we have to do in that world, and I'm not saying that we've done that yet, I'm saying that's an example that's really today. We got to get all this data lined up. And then we got to say, okay, what do we do about what we know at that point, right? And can that be automated in any way? Or can AI actually do something about what the customer is going to actually be calling us about? And that's harder to do too, because then you got to have some automation behind all of that, right? So saying, oh, I want to apply AI to my call center example is much, much more detailed in the solve than just throwing up a robot.
I so agree. Super complex. And the other thing I think I hear you saying, Ed, is that's important is the company's efficiency may not align with the customer's efficiency, but everybody in the company that is thinking about money will think it does.
Yep.
And that is a tremendous risk if you think your efficiency is aligning with their experience. Is that right?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of consultants that will come in and say, oh, this is right for efficiency, and I could go get X millions of dollars out of what you're paying on this. And then you're like, but yeah, the experience that you come out with at the end of the day, unless you change all these other things, is going to be suboptimal.
Yes, and the company will be looking at how great it's doing financially and thinking it's doing great, why it's bleeding customers out the bottom of the funnel. Let's talk about how you measure that, because you're right. in your job right now, right in between all the data and the customer experience, how do you stick measures on that in a way that gets the balance for what the company needs, what the customer needs, and everyone will say they start with the customer first, but a lot of times the financials are overwhelming. How do you measure all that?
So, part of what we teach our product managers are really what I call the basic skills. And we actually have, I call it a university on which we move our product management talent through. And it's all around, the key disciplines around the development of.
And just for our listeners, when you say product managers, what kind of jobs are you talking about here at
software product manager? Sorry.
There Matt. We go. Thank you.
Sorry. So much like we had at eBay, we got great product managers. In fact, Jamie Iannone used to be a product manager who's now the CEO of the company. Yeah. So we have product managers, and we bring them through this process that really, I call it laser focuses on the diagnosis of what we're trying to do. So the value creation is all around the things that we want to apply to a problem, or a business. And some of those things are microscopically measured, not the user experience, not just the how things are placed on the screen. It's a lot about the process. It's a lot about the technology. It's a lot about the operation behind it.
So what's a good microscopic measure you can share? Like an example of a microscopic measure.
So, and let me add a couple of things. You also have to think about unintended consequences, right?
Right.
So let's say, for instance, a company would like to begin to allow a customer to ship back merchandise that they bought online via UPS or FedEx. Yeah. Drop it off at a UPS or FedEx. So you can measure the uptake of that, right? How many people that would have normally went to a store actually came and dropped it off at a UPS or a FedEx facility. You could say, you get real excited about that uptake. But if you don't measure the fraud and you don't have the prevention on the other end of that, people can exploit that. Now, that's kind of a negative experience, but you also have to look out at both sides, right? Yeah. You can get real excited and real energized around, I took X amount of transactions from having an associate at the store to having to deal with them and actually letting self-service take over, but you also create yourself a different problem.
So this is, I think, the importance of objective measures and always challenging the measures to see if you have all the right ones, because especially when you're moving into something like AI, almost all the measures are going to look, in my mind, probably, I could be wrong, at efficiency. And there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences that might be efficiently driving customers away or a problem. We had one of our earlier guests, Tom Goodwin, say AI was like, it's still in its infancy. And it was like having, quote, 1 million cocky teenage interns working for you. They were helpful on ideas, but you would never give them big responsibility. Tell us how you think about AI and how it's going to evolve next, and then write marketers into the story in addition to the partnership with IT.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I'll talk about the relationship between IT and marketing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's talk about that first, and then I'll talk about as it applies to AI, where it could play its role and how it might affect it. But if you think about the old days of marketing, not linear TV, not that sort of stuff. I'm talking about digital marketing, social marketing. Right. Early days back, when we worked together at eBay, it was all around how were you efficient with the search spend, right?
Yeah. It's all about search word buying, and
it's all about the buying of the words, and were we doing it efficiently, and what's the decay curve look like, et cetera. Built a lot of tech around that in the early days, and that's kind of like standard now, right? Now,
Like, look, getting to the efficient frontier then was an effort of tech and thinking, and now everyone can get to the efficient frontier pretty fast.
Pretty fast, right? Then the advent of all these retailers now become marketers, right? Because on their own site and off property, and so they built these big marketing arms. In fact, I don't remember what Amazon's latest results were on their marketing network, but it's pretty sizable.
Yeah, it is pretty sizable.
And if you look at Wal-Mart, we have one. Most people now have those kind of things, but to do that efficiently, you got to have a different hat on, right?
Yeah.
And the ad placement and the ROI on those ad placements, and how you become I'll call it you now become the purveyor of marketing rather than the consumer of marketing, right? Those things all have to be optimized through technology. And when you think about how AI can help optimize in a world like that, it's all about the audiences, right, Mike?
It is. Well, look, and a lot of the tools are falling apart. Like TV in general is just on a massive decline. You have degrading all kinds of marketing tools. So it makes sense that retailers are filling this network gap because it's also super, you got live buyers.
Yeah.
Let's keep talking about this network and marketers and the interface, and
Absolutely.
then tips for how people think about this. And then I want to push on the MarTech stack on top of that.
MarTech stack. That's all about the MarTech stack now, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to run down this, finish the AI point.
All right.
Talk about marketers, and then we'll go to the stack.
All right. So here you go. So when you're talking about audiences and matching audiences with content, and when you say, boy, I got to be able to create a whole lot of content now.
Yeah.
And in the past, it was all done with people, right?
Right.
Very, very bright people. And now these tools are coming out where AI is doing it, right?
Yeah.
So you can scale that pretty quickly, pretty fast, and pretty broadly. And matching that content up with those audiences is now much more technical as well. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't have an audience of 10 million. I got an audience of 100,000, and it's the right 100,000. Example, right? And so that is why your marketing folks, whether you're in the infancy of this or even way advanced, are going to be connected at the hip with the tech guys. And as you apply AI to go help them scale out their content creation or help them improve their results and yield on the ad served,
right?
Or help them decide what audiences you expose to what. All that's got to be done with tech because the scale of that is just, and the speed is insane. And AI will help them do that at a more efficient and effective manner going forward.
So let's move now into the MarTech stack, and then we'll go on to tips for marketers on how to use all this stuff with folks like you. The MarTech stack. A lot of our listeners are like, "Oh my gosh, we bought a Cadillac, we didn't need that," or "This MarTech stack is so big, I can't get my hands around it." Tell us about your view on the MarTech stack and how people should be thinking about it going forward.
Well, everybody has their favorite, Mike.
Yes.
Everybody has their favorite.
Yes.
Everybody has their favorite, and everybody generally likes to change them if it wasn't the one they selected.
Yeah.
But I would say I'd keep it simple at the beginning. And you may not use 10% of the whole MarTech stack at the beginning, right? They keep building these more and more complex products, obviously. There's not really one. I'd say there's not really one that does everything. So you got to cobble a few of the different ones together, right?
Yeah, and is it fair to say what I hear you say between the statement is, don't buy a bunch of shit because you can. Buy things because they solve use cases for you.
Exactly.
And don't get ahead of the technology by buying a bunch of stuff where you don't have a use case.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you very much.
In practicality, that's where you're going to want to be. You are going to want to have to train people on all these different tools that you may or may not use at the beginning. But as you mature and as you get use cases expanded, on-site versus off-site marketing, yada yada. You know the score.
I do.
You start out with. It's okay to start out with the 10 million participants in your audience, and work your way to the 100,000 with a whole bunch of different audiences.
Right.
Starting with the 100,000, probably the place you want to start.
Well, and don't buy, 10 times 100,000 right away. Practice.
Right.
You see so many people that have bought everything that they can in the MarTech stack and can only use like 10% of it. And that is because they bought before they had a use case. So,
or they're using, I'll call it also, I say, buying tech for tech's sake as opposed to having a real problem you're trying to solve, right? Some people fall in love with the technology and not, the problem they're trying to solve.
Look, my thing is always technology is nothing if it doesn't get to the marketplace or the company users. It's just something really cool you're talking about.
That's why you were a great CMO to work with.
Thank you. I'm going to put that. We're going to post that on our
Practicality
LinkedIn.
Wins every time, doesn't it?
Yes, and I think it's so easy to get ahead of yourself, especially in this space. Give us some tips, just general tips, because you've worked with thousands of marketing people. If you were giving them advice on the interface with IT, what advice would you give them in thinking about, we've talked about the stack, but talk about the relationship now. What's the best way to think about it?
That's a great question, Mike. The thing I would say, the advice I give with anybody with interfacing with tech is make sure you really know what you're trying to solve, like really know. And the best relationships that I've had in my career are where you have a customer on the other side of the table, that is very driven, knows what the parameters are that we're going after, is clear on prioritization, and eliminates any roadblocks, and is quick to return on questions that you're asking about, finer points or details. If you try and boil the ocean, you're never going to be happy with your tech person at all, because they're going to ask you so many questions that will frustrate you because they have to get to that level of specificity to be able to help solve your problem.
I think this is a super important point, and I'm going to give you a hypothetical, and you can tell me whether I'm doing it right or not, which is I can't run in and say, my NPS, my customer experience numbers aren't very good. I need them better. Give me technology that solves the customer experience number or gives me a better NPS. I have to say, look, I got 10 big customer experience problems, and each of those problems has 10 components to it. I want to solve these too. Is that a fair way of looking at it or not?
Well, I'll tell you what we did. So when I first got the job, we broke down our path to purchase.
Yeah.
And
a fishbone, tiny little diagram, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then we went out and surveyed, double-blind survey, 40,000 people.
Yeah.
Some of them may or may not have been through that experience, obviously, but the sample size was pretty large. And when I say break it down, we broke it down into think about at the highest level, pre-purchase, purchase, post-purchase, and then all the things that can happen underneath that. An example.
And you can have thousands of bones in this fishbone, right? I mean, literally.
Big time. And
yes,
when we didn't just limit it to stores, physical world. We had obviously our online experience being evaluated, as well as our call center experience. So you could see whether that experience took place in the store and how they felt about it in the store versus online versus over the phone. And that highlighted for us where we focused our efforts on going after this friction, Mike. And it really helped us not try to boil the ocean, but also say, we're not too good on that particular point, but we've got one that's a lot worse than that one that we're going to go focus on. And so when you double clicked on some of those, there was 30 things you could go do in that area.
Exactly.
Right. And we didn't really know, it takes time to go see, once you change some of these things and improve them, it takes time to see the results in the NPS score. But when you're focused down on that one little piece of the experience, you can actually see it move faster.
Exactly. So I will summarize what you said. Correct me if I'm wrong. The best thing you could do on a lot of this stuff when you're interfacing with IT is specificity matters and clarity of outcome matters.
Yep.
And so I think that is a good way to get to our traditional last question, because we're almost at time, which is, it's a two-parter. You can do both or one, but you have to do at least one. Funniest story and or piece of practical advice we haven't discussed yet. You can take one or both, but you have to take at least one. Funniest story you can tell on the air. I don't want blowing stuff up here. Yeah, I wanted to clarify that.
On you? Can I tell one on you?
If you want, knock yourself out.
I won't do that. I won't. I don't want to ruin you. I don't want to ruin your viewership. No. So the advice I'd say.
All right.
Advice overall is probably the one I'll take. Is that
all right?
I would say solve practical problems for your customers. And don't take too many of them. Solve the first one that is their biggest pain point first. Then work your way to the second one. Don't try and solve them all at once. Don't think or assume you know what the problem is or the solution. Let the data lead you to where you need to be.
I think that's a great way to end the show. So thank you, Matt, and thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. If you are enjoying the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Look for all of our shows on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and the I Hear Everything Network, which include Marketing, the battle between believers and non-believers, parts 1, 2, and 3. Why marketing and IT should be BFFs. And a marketer turned tech exec talks about big data, mainframes, and AI. Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential.